So this is about the emotional culture deck.
Yeah, that's the one. So have you got some over in Melbourne as well? Oh, great, perfect.
And I actually ran a session.
Nice. Well, that's what it's for. Congratulations.
I googled how to do it, and I had a spiel, and then I ran it. We had a boot camp about 3 weeks ago,
Okay.
and I ran it with our leaders. So obviously not experienced, but they said we want to do it, and someone needs to do it, and I went, okay, good.
Well, that's music to my ears because I design it for people to be able to pick up and use, and not necessarily have to have a whole bunch of experience. So, yeah.
No. So it's easy to use, but it just opens up. I think once you give people the freedom to open that discussion, people just had so much to share.
Yeah.
So it was great. And one of the comments was that it was the highlight of the 2 days.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great feedback. Yeah,
that's really good.
Good work. You must have done a really good job at facilitating. So well done.
Yeah, so it was fantastic. So we're going to do it at all our boot camps, and we're talking to all of our team leaders to get them to do it with their teams.
Okay, nice. And so how many people did you have in the boot camp that you ran it with?
There were 24, so
wow.
I put them in groups of 3 or 4 to do the initial sorting, and then we came together as a group and we did our, we got down to 5 as a group, the 5 that we liked and 5 that we didn't, and then we probably went a little bit off track because then what I did, because I hadn't run it before, what I did is I said, okay, well, think about, say, the last 6 months when you had an interaction with a staff member that didn't either go as you planned or was unexpected. So then we worked backwards and we said, well, for them to behave like that, how do you think they felt? And what did you do to make them feel like that? And let's rewrite it now. How would you approach that to make them feel the things that you want them to feel? And then what do you think the outcome was? So we sort of did that little bit of a case study with people's real life examples.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool.
It was really good because then we sort of had a really practical example, and then I said, okay, well, in the next 6 months, what conversations do you have to have with people, or, the touch points, and how do you want them to feel? So have a think about that before you design your approach for how you're going to approach them about it so they can get those right feelings. So at the end of the day, you can get the outcomes you want.
Yeah.
It was good.
Wonderful. How beautiful is that? So you're already a pro already. You don't need any help. You're smashing it.
No, I googled it. I watched one YouTube and then I just winged it.
Yeah. Okay. What YouTube video did you happen to watch?
The one that Michaela sent me. I can send you the link. It's the guy who talks about first. The user experience guy in the States that said experience is the new brand.
That was me. Yeah.
With experience, but it's a feeling, and we don't really talk about feelings. And then it talked about the Harvard Business Review article that says, we just don't look at that part of it, and that your action is actually based on your feeling, not knowledge. And so I sort of wove that in. So I can definitely, I'll chase
That's me.
up.
That's me in that video, so I know it well.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's you. Okay. Yeah. Different.
Yeah, so I'm wearing a hat today. So
right.
I'm working from home today.
That was fantastic. So I more or less stole that. I was watching it and paraphrasing it and changing it, and I went, okay, this is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, nice.
And it was a really good intro. People really gelled with it straight away. It's a really approachable thing.
Great.
It was good.
Yeah, well, that's my hope. That's my hope. That's why I filmed it, because I wanted people to be able to share some of that stuff with their people they're running it with. So you've done it perfectly. Nice.
Well, you did a great job. So we're really excited about it here.
Yeah.
And we've got 6 decks here because people went, oh, how do we get these decks? And I've got them on my desk, and we're going to, roll that out to all teams. Yeah,
great. Some companies I know, they've got like a library of decks, and one person looks after them, and they check them in and out, and they keep track of where they are at all times.
What we're going to do? They're on my desk.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the library.
Yeah.
Having a lot of culture discussions over here about, we've gone through quite a big restructure in the last, say, 12 to 14 months, and we're working in very different ways, and a lot of people have really, change is really uncomfortable, and with that uncomfortable change comes a lot of behaviours that are very challenging. So we're really focusing on trying to get everyone to feel comfortable and accept the change and work in the new ways and work together and cooperate, and so it's really timely for us.
Yeah. What were some of the highlight moments that you had when you were running the session?
I think some of the highlight moments were the discussions about the different emotions, and people thought that the emotions actually were at different levels. They thought some emotions encapsulated others.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some really meaningful discussions about what the emotions actually mean and which ones are a higher order, and they're the ones we want to pick because then they encapsulate everything below there.
Yeah.
And I think also we had some really meaningful conversations when people were really vulnerable and open and talked about the challenges that they had. They actually gave examples of their conversations with staff members that had gone in ways that they probably didn't expect, and then they get stuck and they want to change a behaviour but they just don't know how to get there. So it was really that was really confronting, I guess, for some people to share that.
Yeah.
But then, to listen to someone's personal account of how they've dealt with those emotions and behaviours was really quite, brought us together.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
what were you most fearful of before you started the session, considering that you hadn't run one before and you were making up as you went, so to speak, which you weren't, but you felt like? Yeah.
I think I was just afraid a little bit that people wouldn't get involved, because talking about your feelings and emotions is very personal, and we're in a corporate setting, and I thought this is either going to sink or swim. Either it's going to just dive because people won't want to share their feelings. But I was really pleasantly surprised, and I had to often cut it off. I was like, okay, 10 minutes, that's it, no more. We've got to move on, otherwise we'll never get through this. And I did end up cutting it short at an hour and a half. Like we could have quite easily gone to 2 hours, because I think, where you think people are going to be reticent to share, I think they've just been waiting for someone to give them, permission to share. Because we are all human beings and we all do come to work, but we're still people. And the corporate setting can sometimes be quite sanitised and quite austere. So giving people freedom to speak was pretty good, pretty cool.
Yeah. I love the word austere. I'm so happy you used that. That's amazing.
Because it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's really, and I think people were just crying out for a chance to talk about how they feel and how they would like to feel at work. You're here for so long. You're here every day for 8 hours away from family and friends and things that make you feel good about yourself, and you come into this environment that's just cold and plain, and it's like you have to turn into a robot. I don't think that's not how we function anymore. Where society is certainly moving to be inclusive and accepting and embracing the person. So I think we're a bit slow in business in the corporate world to get on that bus. Yeah,
I think you're exactly right. And bring in your whole self. There's not a bring your work self and leave your other self at home. Just be yourself, who you are, and those superpowers that you bring. Let's celebrate them.
Yeah.
Are you hoping that you'll be able to teach or coach some of those other leaders who are going to use it with their teams how to use it better? Or?
Absolutely. I was going to run maybe an enablement session where take a couple of leaders through, how the deck works and some of the things I asked and some of the things to watch out for, and sort of give them a plan about how they're going to run it.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. And when you used it, actually, did you follow the pink cards or the gold cards?
The ones that about how your people want to feel. So is that the gold cards, the leaders?
The leader one, the pink ones, okay.
Yeah, because it was actually, the first boot camp was really a very senior group. So we're rolling it out from top down. So we picked some really senior leaders so they could give us feedback, because they understood that it was sort of a trial and that every person who has direct reports will eventually go through this. But it was a really senior group, so it was all about how we're going to get our people to feel and our culture. How is that going to change?
And when you were going through it at the start, was there anything you're like, damn, I wish I knew the answer to that question. I wish I knew that before you actually got into it?
You mean about how I ran it?
Or any part of it.
No, I think your video was really good, your YouTube video.
Okay, nice.
And because it seems so simple, I felt quite happy to run it. I'd never run it before, but I thought I can do this. So I think it's really accessible.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm trying to think of what sort of tips and tricks I can give you, but it sounds like you've taken it on board and you run with it. The other thing was, did Michaela share the toolkit with you?
What's the toolkit? Is that sheet of paper?
What sheet of paper did you have?
Different. There's one of them. One of the decks had a sheet of paper with all sorts of different questions in there, and I didn't actually have that or follow that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you don't have to. That's. I wonder if it was the leadership field guide or the Know Yourself handbook.
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe.
So the leadership field guide would be if you so you know when your leaders played it in the boot camp and before they came to consensus on the group list, they each individually came up with the things that they wanted their people to feel.
Yeah.
So that's a way to then take that list and have an individual leader consider those individual things, because the things that they came up with are still important. Just because they didn't make the final list doesn't mean that them as a leader shouldn't move away from that.
No. So we absolutely talked about those two different categories, and I think actually that's probably something that was a little bit confusing at the beginning. The ones that we must have and the ones that are important but are not make or break.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it took me a little while when I was trying to work out how to run this, what the difference was. You know, I was like, hang on, what is these? And that's what I eventually came up with. These are the make or break ones and these are the nice to haves.
Yeah.
And I think that it would be really good on one-on-one discussions, you know, to coach individual leaders for what's important to them. So we did talk about that, you know, that there are different ways to run the cards, and you can talk about what you personally want. And, you know, in the group setting, we were going to come up with a group consensus as a group of leaders.
Yeah.
So what we're planning to do is keep all those results from the different boot camps and just track them over time and see what different officers, you know, or different groups of people are thinking and where they're the same and where they're different. And we're also now using that information in our communications, because I help Rob with his AU commercial communications. So I keep in mind, now people like to, you know the bigger picture, and I go, okay, well, make sure when I write this email, I also include a bigger picture. So it's actually really helpful.
Yeah, nice.
So they're really good. And actually, I have to say, I took them home and did it with my teenage daughters. How do they want to feel in the family? So I love these cards, you know, and I've got a list of how this one wants to feel and how this one wants to feel.
Yeah.
So it's a really easy way to open up that conversation about relationships.
Nice. Well, it warms my heart that you're doing that, because I've heard a few other people doing that, and it's just mind-boggling, really, because I didn't design it for that way at all, but it turns out that it's limitless, really, what you can do.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I took home and I said, how do you want to feel when you're in this family?
Yeah.
And came up a really unusual one where, because she's 15 and she says she wants to feel equal. There isn't any mother-daughter, you know, we are equal. And I'm going, okay, we've got to talk about this one.
Yeah.
You know, wow. But so it's really, it's fantastic. I've done it with each of the kids separately.
Oh, I'm so happy you shared that story with me. That's incredible. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
I tell people about a few of the people who have actually emailed me and said they've done that, but to hear it face to face from somebody is pretty cool.
Yeah, because there are a lot of things in there that I wouldn't have picked. I wouldn't have thought her mind would even gone to, you know. So it's really revealing for me to think, okay, these things are important to her, and I need to foster these to foster that relationship.
Yeah. Well, often what I've realised over the last 3 years of playing with this deck and building it and designing it, developing it, is that it seems to me that our limitation is our access to language or access to labels. So we want to talk about these things, as you said before, because it's a game, it gives us permission, but we want to talk about them, but we don't know how. And generally it's because we don't have the language to describe or express.
It's really interesting when people start talking about each of those feelings and trying to describe what they mean, because that's really where you get sort of a meeting of the minds and a shared understanding, because you think, well, that's not what it means to me. And we had a lot of those really deep conversations about, well, to me, this is what that means, and someone else has a really different interpretation of the same word. Yeah. And so that's a really useful thing to just talk about that, because we all think we know what a word means, but it actually means something personal and different to each of us.
Yeah.
So having that conversation, thinking, well, what does equal mean? What do you think is going to happen if you're equal to me? Does that mean I can't tell you to go to bed? because you're not, and for her, what it meant was, that's not what he meant at all. But what he meant is that I can't say to her, do it because I'm your mum and I said. Like, I have to actually have a valid, logical reason.
Yeah.
And she needs to know the valid, logical reason. And then she goes, oh, okay, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
But not just because I said, or not without explanation.
Yeah, not because of just the inherent existing hierarchy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. She doesn't want the hierarchy. She wants it equal.
Yeah.
So have you been running this in Wellington, or who have you been running it with?
Yeah, I've been running it all around the shop. Wellington, Auckland. I've been over in Chicago and Toronto and Melbourne and Sydney and lots of different places. I'm doing less and less of the consulting side of it though, because there's more experienced, smarter people that like yourselves and at Datacom, for instance, who do consulting and do that work. And I just now focus really on building these types of tools and also then helping people learn how to use them. Yeah, so there'll be about 10,000 or so people around the world who are either bought it or downloaded it and using it. So there's quite a cool little community that are experimenting with it. And
do you have a chat board or something where people who are using it can all log in and share experiences?
Not yet. Not for I do for about 70 people who have gone through the first level of my partnership model. So people who come on a masterclass that I run become an elephant rider.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had masterclasses. When do they run?
Well, it depends. And it depends on where I might be in the world and how much interest there are from people in those different parts. So I was in Sydney in March. I ran one there, and I was in Melbourne in November. And I've just been in Toronto and Chicago. And I'm coming back to Sydney in in September.
Oh, right. Can you, I'll come up to Sydney and do the September one.
Okay. That'd be great. If you have a look on my Riders and Elephants website and search in the Masterclasses tab, at the bottom there's a suggest a masterclass location.
Okay.
And if you put your name in there and just type in Sydney or Melbourne, then when I go to announce the masterclass, all those people who have made suggestions, I get in touch with them first to make sure they get first dibs on tickets.
Okay, because I'd certainly be really happy, because I really want to drive that here at Datacom, and I'd be really happy to come and do that class. So I feel like I've got a bit of training behind me, because I just made it up.
No, what you've done is perfect, and perfect, but not perfect. But that's perfect in my opinion, because you've tried it and you've done it, and now you can experiment and you can tweak it based on what you've done. So what you did was the exact way that I've learned from the start. To be honest, when I first built it, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I still don't necessarily know what I'm doing. To be honest, I learn from every time I use it. Yeah. And the beauty is, there's no real right or wrong way to use it. There's a way that I use it, but there's other ways that people are using it which are different to how I use it. And
that must be interesting for you though, if you've designed it, then to watch people just do something completely different.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, it blows my mind really. And I mean, there's probably 10 or 11 or 12 different ways to apply the deck, different conversations, different ways, different outcomes from it. Now, and I only designed 3 of those ways.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Got a life of its own.
Yeah.
That sort of just shows that we're really ripe for it.
Yeah.
Ripe for that discussion if people are taking it and doing creative, innovative things with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and it's cool that people want to do that and they feel brave enough to do that.